Edge of the Wild, a survival odyssey. Michael Adams always felt that somewhere between the crowded streets of New York City and the quiet solitude of nature lay a world waiting to be discovered. As a young marketing professional, he had spent years immersed in a life of routine office meetings, sleepless nights over presentation deadlines, and a relentless pursuit of success that left little room for self-exploration. Yet deep inside, a burning desire for adventure and freedom remained, igniting a spark that would soon change the course of his life. It all began on a crisp autumn morning when Michael received a cryptic message from his old college friend, Daniel Rhodes, who had spent several years exploring some of the most remote stretches of North America. The message, filled with excitement and urgency, urged him to consider an expedition to the heart of the Canadian Rockies. Daniel's tales of glacial vistas, roaring waterfalls, and encounters with indigenous wisdom struck a chord in Michael's soul. Before he knew it, the sterile confines of his corporate existence were giving way to a life where every day promised an encounter with the unpredictable world of nature. With little more than a backpack and a heart full of hope, Michael flew to Vancouver, where his journey into the wilderness would begin. On arrival, the cool Pacific air and the backdrop of snow-capped peaks felt like an invitation to a realm that was both ancient and enchanting. Michael met with Elena Martinez, a seasoned guide known for her expertise in navigating the treacherous terrain of Banff National Park. Elena, a woman in her early 30s with an earnest smile and eyes that mirrored countless adventures, had earned her reputation through years of guiding lost travelers and fearless explorers alike. During their first conversation over steaming cups of coffee in a bustling Vancouver cafe, Elena spoke with a quiet authority about the power of nature and the need to respect its many moods. Nature, she said softly, is both our ally and our greatest challenge. It gives us life, but it can take it away if we are unprepared. Her words resonated deeply with Michael, affirming his decision to leave behind the familiar comforts of city life. As the plane soared over the vast expanse of Western Canada, Michael's mind whirled with anticipation and anxious curiosity. The cityscape of Vancouver gradually faded into a mosaic of dense forests, winding rivers, and rugged mountains. The first day of their expedition led them to the outskirts of the small town of Kenmore, where they stocked up on essential supplies. Elena introduced Michael to a ragtag crew of local experts, a quiet, stoic tracker named Greg Lawson, a cheerful medic with an unwavering optimism called Sarah Miller, and a passionate naturalist, Lucas Bell, whose encyclopedic knowledge of every flora and fauna in the region was nothing short of remarkable. Each member of the team brought their own expertise, forming a mosaic of inspiration and strength that would soon be tested by the wild itself. The group set out early the next morning on a well-trodden path that gradually diverged into less familiar territory. The sun, still low in the eastern sky, cast long-stretched shadows over dew-soaked ground as they trekked along narrow trails bordered by ancient pines. Michael, whose senses had been dulled by years of urban monotony, was now awakening to every sound: the crisp rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bald eagle, and the soft whispers of the wind. Despite his professional training in strategic planning, nothing in the boardrooms of New York had prepared him for the raw, untamed rhythm of life in the wilderness. Hours into their trek, the team encountered their first unexpected challenge. As they navigated a rocky escarpment near the Bow River, dark clouds began to gather on the horizon. "We're in for a storm," Greg warned in his measured tone, eyes fixed on the skies. Elena quickly took charge. "Everyone, secure loose items and prepare for rapid shelter. We won't be caught out in an open gorge." The group hurried to find refuge under a rocky overhang, where they managed to huddle together as the heavens unleashed a torrential downpour. Rain hammered the stone, and the sound mingled with the relentless patter on their makeshift shelter. Michael, soaked to the bone, felt a curious exhilaration rather than despair. This was the kind of trial he had longed for, a visceral demonstration of nature's might and the fragility of human existence in its relentless embrace. Once the storm subsided and the team emerged to a transformed landscape, a world glittering with droplets and shimmering under a pale rainbow, they resumed their trek with a renewed sense of determination. "Every storm teaches us something," Sarah remarked quietly, her voice barely rising above the gentle babble of the returning river. Michael nodded, feeling the profundity of survival and the intimate dance between human vulnerability and natural power. The journey through the Rockies was as much an internal exploration as it was a physical one. Each step seemed to strip away layers of self-doubt and fear. On one particularly challenging ascent near Lake Louise, Michael began to experience a series of unexpected reflections. As he sat by the tranquil waters under the fading glow of dusk, he recalled years of self-imposed limitations, missed opportunities, the endless pursuit of conventional success, and the silent yearning to connect with something deeper. In a hushed conversation with Lucas, who had joined him by the lakeshore, Michael confided, "I've spent so long chasing results. Out here, every moment feels unpredictable. There's beauty in that chaos that I never knew existed." Lucas smiled gently, replying, "In nature, every trial is a teacher, and every moment an opportunity for rebirth. You just have to be willing to learn." Their dialogue, layered with frank admissions and newfound understanding, cemented Michael's awakening. This was more than a survival adventure, it was a journey into the self, with nature as both mentor and mirror. As the days turned into weeks, the landscape grew wilder and the challenges more formidable. The group ventured further into the heart of the Rockies, encountering steep cliffs, narrow escarpments, and dense forests that seemed to whisper secrets of ancient times. One afternoon, while traversing a narrow path along the edge of a precipitous drop, Michael found himself separated from the group by a sudden landslide. The rockfall, triggered by a combination of heavy rains and the inexorable pull of gravity, had transformed the familiar trail into an alien terrain. Michael's heart pounded as he braced himself against the rugged stones, clutching a small pocket knife and the precious supplies he had managed to salvage. In that dire moment of isolation, the strength of human determination surfaced. Michael called out into the howling wind, his voice carried by the immense silence of the mountain. "Hello? Is anyone out there?" His words echoed against the canyon walls. Minutes that felt like hours passed before he heard a muffled reply. "Michael, this is Elena. Keep calm and hold on, we're coming." The sound of approaching voices brought tears to his eyes. When Elena and Greg finally arrived, their faces edged with concern and determination, Michael realized what mattered most was not the destination but the strength of the bond between those who dared to defy the wilderness. In a dialogue filled with relief and raw emotion, Elena reassured him, "You are tougher than you realize. Nature rarely chooses to break us, it only shows us our own hidden power." In that moment, the wilderness transformed from a forbidding adversary to a harsh but honest mirror reflecting the soul's resilience. The incident left an indelible mark on Michael. His mind, sharpened by close encounters with mortality, began to see each day as a precious gift. Along the way, small acts of kindness and resilience became the norm. One chilly evening near Jasper National Park, as the team gathered around a modest campfire for warmth, Sarah regaled them with tales of her childhood in the rugged landscapes of Montana. "I remember when my father used to say that every star up there holds the memory of someone who once wandered these lands," she recalled, gazing up at the shimmering sky. Michael listened intently, feeling an ever-deepening connection to the universe and its myriad mysteries. The further they traveled, the more Michael discovered about the delicate balance that sustained both nature and human life. On a particularly arduous trek through dense, frost-covered forests near Jasper, Elena explained in hushed tones about the local indigenous legends, a tapestry of stories woven with respect for the land and its spirits. "The First Nations have always known that nature is more than a backdrop for our lives, it is the heart of our existence," she said. "When you listen carefully, the wind, the rustle of leaves, even the quiet flow of a river can teach an ancient story." Michael marveled at how these timeless narratives offered solace and wisdom in a world where technology and modernity often drowned out the subtle cadences of life. The stories deepened his resolve to preserve not only his own life but also to celebrate the natural world as a living testament to time and resilience. Despite the joy of discovery, the wilderness was never forgiving. A sudden encounter with a territorial grizzly bear in a narrow valley near Kootenay National Park forced the team into a heart-stopping confrontation. On that fateful morning, while Lucas was scanning the forest for signs of local wildlife, a low, guttural growl shattered the serene silence. The majestic creature, massive and imposing, emerged from a thicket, its eyes fixed on the group. Michael's pulse raced as he instinctively reached for his camera, a memento from a past life, now serving as a token of survival, and slowly began to back away. "Stand your ground but do not run," Elena instructed in a calm yet commanding tone. The tension was palpable as every second stretched into an eternity. In a series of hushed whispers, the team coordinated their movements with practiced precision. Greg, wielding a large branch as an improvised deterrent, managed to create a diversion while Sarah and Lucas slowly pushed Michael towards safety. Ultimately, the bear, disinterested in the human intruders and perhaps sensing their respectful fear, lumbered away into the dense forest. In the aftermath, as they gathered in a trembling circle, Michael's voice broke the silence. "I never imagined survival would converge with moments of such raw beauty and peril." Elena's reassuring smile tempered the lingering fear. "In the wild, every heartbeat is a miracle. Remember that it is our constant companion in a journey of rediscovery." Through every trial the wilderness cast in his path, Michael began to understand that survival was not measured solely by physical endurance but also by the capacity to adapt, to learn, and to respect the raw power of the environment. With each passing day, as they pushed further into the untouched corridors of nature, a landscape dotted with alpine meadows, solitary lakes, and ancient glaciers, Michael's transformation became palpable. The rigors of cold, hunger, and isolation demanded from him a profound lesson in humility and perseverance. Late one chilly night, huddled in a makeshift shelter carved out of glacial rocks near the foot of the Columbia icefield, Michael confided in Elena about his doubts and fears. "There were times when I questioned if I had the strength to go on," he admitted, staring into the dancing shadows cast by a small lantern. Elena's eyes, reflecting both empathy and wisdom, met his. "Warriors are not defined by the absence of fear but by the will to overcome it," she said softly. "You are capable of more than you ever imagined, Michael. Remember that when you face the darkness within and without." These words, profound and echoing in the cold silence of the glacier, rekindled a fire in his heart. It was a turning point where every harsh lesson transformed into a stepping stone towards inner strength and self-mastery. The expedition took an unexpected turn when a sudden, crippling snowstorm forced the group to take shelter in an abandoned ranger station near Yoho National Park. The old building, with its creaking wooden floors and faded photographs of bygone eras, felt like a relic of the past, an ephemeral capsule holding stories of generations that had once braved the wilderness. As the wind howled outside and bitter cold seeped through the walls, the team gathered around a nearly extinguished wood stove. In that cramped, shadowy space, over shared rationed meals, long-forgotten memories resurfaced and new bonds were forged in the crucible of adversity. Lucas recounted a time when he had nearly lost his way during a similarly brutal winter, and Sarah revealed how her family had survived in remote Montana during one of the harshest winters on record. It was during these moments that Michael grasped the real essence of adventure: trust, camaraderie, and the timeless human spirit that refuses to yield in the face of nature's indomitable might. The days passed in a blur of relentless weather and silent determination. With the storm eventually subsiding, the renewed optimism saw the group emerge from the station, their faces etched with both exhaustion and resolve. Together, they continued their passage through rugged highlands that tested the boundaries of human endurance. Navigating through treacherous passes and icy rivers, Michael often found solace in quiet moments of introspection. In one such instance, while traversing the famous Icefields Parkway near Jasper under a clearing sky, he paused to admire the grandeur of towering peaks reflected in the glassy surface of a mountain lake. In that reflective pause, he realized that life was not about the safety of the known but the thrill of the unexpected, a mosaic of risks, rewards, and perpetual growth. During a break on one particularly long day, the group set up camp near the shimmering waters of Maligny Lake in Alberta. As twilight spread its purple hues across the sky, Michael sat by the fire and shared his thoughts with Sarah. "I used to believe success was about climbing corporate ladders and acquiring material things," he said, his voice laced with a mixture of regret and hope. But here, every sunrise and every challenge reminds me that the true measure of a person lies in moments of vulnerability and courage. Sarah, stirring the embers with a gentle stick, replied, "Nature is the ultimate equalizer. It strips away the superficial and makes us confront our very essence. Out here, every step forward is a triumph over fear." Their conversation flowed effortlessly into the night, weaving a tapestry of shared dreams and reflections that bound them together in an unspoken promise to keep exploring, learning, and living with passion. One morning, as a light mist clung to the valleys near Yoho, Elena gathered the group for a final push towards their ultimate destination, a remote plateau that offered a panoramic view of the entire Rockies. "This plateau," she explained with a glint of excitement in her eyes, "is said to hold a secret that only those who truly respect the wilderness can discover." Michael felt his pulse quicken in anticipation. The trek to the plateau was grueling. Steep trails, sudden drops, and the continuous threat of avalanches made every step a battle against both nature and fatigue. Yet, with each challenge surmounted, the team's collective spirit grew stronger. Conversations along the way were punctuated by encouraging words and shared laughter. Greg, always the quiet pillar of strength, would occasionally remark, "When you look at this vastness, you realize how small we are. But that smallness is what makes our every conquest so meaningful." Michael, listening intently, internalized every word, understanding that the true nature of survival was a constant interplay between humility and determination. After days of arduous climbing and moments of near despair, the group finally reached the plateau. As they stood together on the ridge overlooking a breathtaking vista of jagged mountains, sparkling lakes, and whispers of ancient glaciers, an overwhelming sense of achievement enveloped them. The expanse of nature before them was both humbling and invigorating. In the soft light of the setting sun, Michael turned to Elena and said, "I never imagined that losing my way in the chaos of life would lead me to this moment of pure clarity." Elena nodded, her eyes reflecting the myriad colors of the twilight. "Every experience, every hardship, was a stepping stone here. The wild has a way of teaching us what truly matters." In that serene silence, the unspoken truth resonated: survival was not solely about overcoming external obstacles but also about embracing one's inner strength and the unpredictable ballet of fate and courage. As the days continued to meld into one another with the rhythm of nature, the expedition neared its end. The team began their descent, retracing the rugged paths now etched into their memories with bittersweet finality. Michael felt a profound mix of sorrow and gratitude: sorrow for leaving behind the raw beauty and lessons of the wild, and gratitude for the transformative power of his journey. During their final evening camp near the banks of the Saskatchewan River, under a starlit sky that seemed to host an infinite array of celestial storytellers, Michael gathered his thoughts aloud. "This journey has redefined every expectation I had of life," he confessed, his voice soft yet resonant in the crisp air. "Out here, every breath, every heartbeat was a reminder that I am more than my job, more than the labels we wear. I am alive, and alive in a way that counts." The circle of companions, each touched by the transformative power of their shared ordeal, responded in a chorus of quiet acknowledgement, their eyes reflecting both joy and the looming melancholy of farewell. The descent through the Rockies was quieter, marked by moments of silent introspection and gentle farewells as each member of the team contemplated returning to a world so different from the one they had embraced. Back in Vancouver, as Michael boarded his flight home, the memory of the wild no longer felt like a distant echo but a permanent part of his soul. The bustling urban landscape of New York City would soon welcome him back, but Michael was forever changed. His journey had taught him that survival is not simply about physical endurance, it is a testament to the human spirit's capacity to adapt, learn, and emerge renewed from the crucible of nature's harsh reality. In the quiet aftermath of his return, Michael found solace in writing about his experiences. Every detail from the sudden roar of a grizzly bear to the soft, meditative cadence of a mountain stream wove itself into words that spoke of both the brutality and the tenderness of the natural world. Friends and colleagues listened in awe as he recounted his Odyssey, the adrenaline-charged moments of terror, the unexpected kindness of strangers, and the constant interplay between vulnerability and resolve. One evening, while sharing his story at a small gathering in a cozy Manhattan loft, a curious guest asked, "Michael, what made you take such a leap into the unknown?" Michael paused, reflecting on the journey that had reshaped his very essence. "Sometimes," he said, "the only way to truly grow is to let go of who you think you are and embrace what you could become. The wilderness taught me that we are both fragile and formidable, vulnerable in our humanity and indomitable in our will." As time went on, Michael continued to seek a balance between his urban life and the wilderness that had liberated his spirit. On weekends, he would often drive to nearby state parks along the Hudson River or hike among the rolling hills of the Catskills. Each excursion, no matter how brief, was a reminder of the lessons he had learned amid the timeless embrace of nature. The scars of his trials, both visible in the dust on his boots and invisible in the newfound resilience in his heart, became symbols of transformation. Even his colleagues began to notice a subtle change, a spark of authenticity and an adventurous glimmer in his eyes that defied the mundanity of office life. Over coffee in a familiar Brooklyn cafe one chilly morning, Michael met with his old friend, Brian Cooper. Brian, a fellow professional who had always admired Michael's quiet determination, asked, "What drove you to leave it all behind and venture into the wild?" Michael responded thoughtfully, "I was searching for a truth that the city never offered, a truth that only comes when you face the raw elements head-on, when you live every moment on the edge between fear and hope. Out there in the Rockies, I learned that every struggle has a lesson, and every setback is a setup for something greater." Brian listened, captivated by the transformation evident in his friend's demeanor. That conversation marked the beginning of a series of discussions about the essence of life, where the triumphs of the human spirit were celebrated amid a backdrop of relentless wilderness and the enduring pulse of nature. It wasn't long before Michael found himself inspired to venture further. Determined to uncover more of nature's hidden wisdom, he planned another expedition, this time to the remote regions of Alaska. As he prepared for the journey, Michael's thoughts were filled with memories of the Rockies, the lessons learned, and the faces of those who had accompanied him on that unforgettable path. His meticulous preparations and the quiet resolve in his eyes spoke of a man who had finally found his own definition of success, not in boardroom victories, but in the gentle, awe-inspiring moments of communion with the wild. The Alaskan wilderness, with its vast expanses of untamed beauty, provided a new stage for Michael's exploration. Boarding a small bush plane in Anchorage, he felt that familiar stir of both trepidation and exhilaration. The plane soared over snow-clad mountains, glacial rivers, and sprawling forests that seemed untouched by time. Landing on a precarious airstrip near Denali National Park, Michael reconnected with a local guide named Ryan Thompson, whose hearty laugh and deep knowledge of the land promised to turn this expedition into a transformative journey. "Out here, Michael, the landscape is a living being," Ryan remarked, adjusting his heavy wool cap. "Every ridge, every valley carries the imprint of nature's relentless power. Hold on tight and learn its language." Michael nodded, absorbing every word as the wilderness around him beckoned with mysterious allure. The early days in Alaska were a medley of wonder and relentless adversity. The biting cold tested his endurance, and the unpredictable weather forced him to adapt in ways he had never imagined. On one particularly frigid morning, as a pale sun attempted to break through an overcast sky, Michael encountered a pack of wild wolves near a frozen river. Their eyes, reflecting a mix of prudence and innate curiosity, locked with his for a few breathless seconds. In that silent exchange, he felt a deep kinship, a shared understanding of survival in a world where each life was a delicate balance between instinct and perseverance. "They are as much a part of this land as the mountains and the ice," he later confided in Ryan, who smiled knowingly. "Respect them, and you respect the heartbeat of Alaska." These encounters reinforced to Michael that survival was not simply about fending off danger, it was about embracing every facet of nature's profound tapestry. As the weeks turned into a series of awe-inspiring days, Michael's journey through Alaska unfolded like a long-forgotten legend. Amid towering glaciers and crystalline lakes that mirrored the vastness of an endless sky, he encountered moments that defied the everyday, igniting his inner adventurer. During an unexpected break in a dense forest near the famed Matanuska Glacier, he shared dinner with a group of local hunters and storytellers in a rustic lodge. Over hearty bowls of stew and exuberant toasts to life, the group exchanged stories of survival, loss, and rediscovery. One elder, his face weathered by countless Alaskan winters, mused, "In this land, hope is as real as the ice beneath your feet. And every hardship, every frozen tear, eventually thaws into a lesson for those willing to endure." Michael took those words to heart, realizing that the wilderness, in all its harsh splendor, was a mirror in which the true measure of one's spirit could be seen. Time seemed to both accelerate and slow down in the wild expanses of Alaska. Days blurred into nights, and nights, lit by dancing auroras, gave way to quiet moments of introspection by the fire. Michael kept a small leather-bound journal, in which every detail of his journey from the crunch of snow underfoot to the serene melancholy of a star-filled sky was etched in ink as testimony to his transformation. One night, while sitting on a ridge overlooking a valley cloaked in silence save for the distant call of an eagle, he recorded, "The Arctic wind carries away the illusions of a predictable world, leaving behind only raw truths. I am, at last, learning that survival is the art of being fully present to every miracle and every challenge." In that solitary moment, the very essence of Alaska seemed to affirm his path. The wilderness had changed him, sculpting him into a man who recognized that true success lay not in the metrics of a corporate world but in the depth of one's connection to the greater, untamed pulse of life. As his expedition drew to a close and Michael prepared to return to civilization, he reflected on the indelible lessons of his journeys. Both in the towering Rockies and the endless wilds of Alaska, he had discovered that survival was a multifaceted endeavor honoring not only physical strength but spiritual resilience, compassion, and the unwavering courage to face every twist of fate. In farewell gatherings with the friends he had made along the way, Elena, Sarah, Greg, Lucas, and many others, he promised that their shared memories would never fade. "The wild has become a part of me," he said during an emotional goodbye at an Anchorage cafe, "and I carry within me its voice, its mystery, and its eternal call to adventure." Friends embraced him, their voices low and sincere as they pledged to one day reunite on a trail where nature's unpredictable beauty would once again draw them close. Returning to New York City was an adjustment, a dawning realization that the concrete and neon lights could never fully replicate the grandeur of a sunrise over a silent mountain lake, nor the cathartic symphony of wind through ancient pines. Yet Michael understood that true transformation was not about physically remaining in the wild but about carrying its spirit wherever he went. In boardroom meetings and hurried city walks, he found subtle ways to infuse his life with the lessons of the wilderness, taking quiet moments to observe the sky, feeling the pulse of the city as a patchwork of resilient hearts, and writing passionate notes that celebrated every small victory of life. Years later, Michael would look back on his adventures with a serene smile, a testament to a life fully lived on the edge of comfort. The wilderness had taught him to embrace life's inherent uncertainties, to celebrate imperfection, and to find meaning in every unexpected twist. His adventures, both among the wild peaks of Canada and the icy expanses of Alaska, continued to inspire him to value connection over conquest, authenticity over appeasement, and the sacred beauty of each impermanent moment. And so, though the pages of his calendar now marked deadlines and city events, the heartbeat of the wild still pulsed steadily within him, a constant reminder that the true essence of survival lay in the courage to rediscover oneself at every dawn, no matter the terrain. In the end, Michael Adams' adventures were not merely a chronicle of surviving against the odds, they were a celebration of life, a dance with nature's untamed spirit, and a journey that reshaped every notion of success. Amid the endless courses of winding trails and unpredictable storms, he discovered that each experience was a story worth telling, a narrative of resilience, hope, and the transformative magic found at the intersection of fear and freedom. His soul, once confined by the routines of modern life, had learned to soar among the peaks and valleys of a world where every heartbeat echoed the eternal song of survival and self-discovery. This is a fictional tale and not based on actual events. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe to my channel, like, and check the description to see how you can support my work.